Hi, my name is Marty Schupak, and I'm coming from Valley Cottage, New York. We're 27 miles north of New York City, and you tuned into a virtual T-ball clinic. And the reason why I wanted to do this is I had a number of clinics scheduled. I know some of your leagues right now are watching it. There was a couple of leagues in Maryland. There was a few leagues in New Jersey, one league in Delaware, and about four leagues in Pennsylvania. We had some clinics, T-ball clinics scheduled. Unfortunately, we're all going through this coronavirus, and we're all locked into our homes. So I decided to do this. I'm going to try to make it as smooth as possible. I am going to divide it into different modules. This is an introduction module, and I just want to say that I'm not affiliated with any league at all. I'm doing this on my own. I have coached in the Nyack Valley Cottage Little League, which is north of New York City, about 27 miles. And we're kind of the epicenter of this coronavirus. Today it's March 27, 2020. And listen, I'm trying to do this on one take. I'm not a technical person, so please forgive me. My eyes will wander. I'll drink a water once in a while. I'll be reading off some cue cards or whatever, but I'm going to try to go through this as quick as I can, try to make it as stimulating as I could for you guys so you could in turn stimulate your players on the field, and hopefully it won't be too long from now. A little background, I mentioned I coached 25 years. I was also on the board of directors for a number of years. I love coaching. I love sports. Sports has been my life. I've written 11 books. I produced 26 instructional videos. My thing is drills. I'm a big drill guy. I love running practices. In fact, I love practices almost as much as games. I love when I'm able to create new drills. I love when I learn from other coaches new drills, and I'll just give you a little hint if you're going to coach for a while that some of the best drills I've learned are from the kids themselves. Now, I'm doing this, and I tell these coaches and parents at the clinics I do, I'm trying to build a foundation, not just for T-ball. I'm going to be giving you ideas that it's going to help you next 5, 6, 7 years if you're coaching in recreational ball or beyond. I'll be giving you tips that worked for me. I'll tell you some things that didn't work for me. Some of the things that work for me may or may not work for you, okay? But one thing I learned, I've done clinics all around the country, and I hear all the time from coaches and from different league presidents, well, Marty, you know, some of the stuff you're going to talk about, it's different up here. The parents are different. We don't have access to as many fields. And I get a lot of excuses, and I can tell you I've done clinics in some of the worst inner city areas. I've done them in farmland in upstate New York. I've done them over the border in Canada. I'm telling you that the techniques I'm going to talk about work. The drills I'm going to talk about work. The philosophy I'm going to give you works. And when I say it works for me. I want you to try to develop your own philosophy. One of the things I see coaches do when they get out in the field for the first time with their players is they try to run practices like their high school coach did, because that's the last thing they remember about baseball practices. And the first thing I would tell you is you have to coach to the age of your kids. If you're coaching T-ball players, coach to the age of your kids, all right? I want to get into now some off-the-field preparation, and just very quickly, I want to let you know, when I do clinics and I do feedback, one of the biggest objections I have are from coaches and parents that say, I wish you didn't spend as much time as you did talking about a parents' meeting and about sending letters to different parents. And I know when I used to go to clinics, I was the same way. All I want to learn about was first and third defensive situations, the release point for my pitchers, top hand release on the bat. I want to learn the technical stuff, and I learned the hard way that there are certain things you have to put into effect And the things I'm going to tell you, I'm telling you now, it's going to make your season run a lot smoother than if you didn't do them. It's up to you. It's caveat emptor. All I can tell you is I did a clinic a number of years ago, and I went through the different things I want coaches to do, and I call it off-the-field preparation. And I got a letter at the end of the season, and it was something to the effect of, "Dear Marty, I attended your clinic, which I loved, but the stuff you talked about with the parents meeting and getting along with parents, I thought was a waste of time when you spoke about it. Was I wrong?" And he laid out some things. He said that, if he had done a parents meeting, if he had written letters, if he had kind of set a stage for how the season's going to go with the parents, it would have been a lot smoother. So first thing I do is, and again, excuse me if my eyes wander, but I'm going to be reading right off some cue cards. But when the team is picked, and where I am in New York, right outside of the city, we usually pick our teams in October. Now, you could pick it, I don't know if you pick it October, January, February. Usually T-ball, we pick closer to January, but I'm going to assume right now that they're picked in October. And what I do is I write a letter, and if you scroll down, and by the way, from a non-technical person, it might behoove you, if you follow this clinic, open up two windows. You could have me on the window, or you could just listen to me. You don't have to look at me. But I have some material right in front of you from the website, T-Ball America, that I want you to follow. I have the letters written. So just follow that. And again, it might be easier if you open up two windows. So I write an introductory letter. Congratulations on being part of the 220 Blue Hens T-Ball team. And I tell them about my name. I mention my name and how excited I am. And then I mention the team roster. This is a point I want to bring out now if you're going to be coaching for a while. Notice that it's very simple. I have the names in alphabetical order. Whenever you list the names of your team, list in alphabetical order. 3 times I saw coaches in my 25-year career, when they listed the name, they did it in the order they were drafted when they had a draft, and which you don't have to worry about in T-ball, but it's a good habit to get into. And what happened was, one of the parents got wind of it, that it was a draft, and he raised all kinds of trouble with the coach, why he got drafted in this round instead of that round. It's very simple. Keep the names in alphabetical order. And as you see, I sign my name. I give him as much information as I can, contact information. And I also like to mention, and I put, if you see, we may need help, and ask for just a small part of your time during the season. I try setting it up that we will be asking for volunteers. All right, this is a volunteer organization, a volunteer league, and as you know, and I'll just tell you, if you're a first-year T-ball coach, you can never have too many volunteers in T-ball if you want to teach kids the right way. After that, once we set up a practice before the season starts, I write a follow-up letter, as you see, and I say our season's finally here. We begin our outdoor practices next week. If you can't find it, just scroll down. You'll see it. Being held on Monday, March 16th at Hilltop Middle School. And I wrote that I have a short parents meeting, and I want both parents there. And this is very, very important. I tell them we're going to do it like right after practice. I'm going to have my assistants run the last half hour. And I just put it's going to run like 15 to 20 minutes. I want both parents there, okay? And I mentioned then that I'm going to need 1 or 2 parents to help volunteer to be team parents. In T-ball, you'll have a snack time. You rotate the snacks, but I like to have someone organize it. I'm of the opinion, I think if you're a good delegator, you could run a very good operation, whether it's in sports or in business, as long as you delegate it to the right people and you stay on top of them as far as supervising. I want you guys as coaches to be relieved of a lot of your responsibility. So you want to get into the habit of delegating some of this responsibility. Okay, let's get down to the parents' meeting. As you notice, when I signed my name, I put as much contact information as I could. So when we have the parents' meeting, I have a handout. And again, this handout to me, and I put it together quickly. I located it in some of my old files on my computer. This looks to me like it's not a T-ball parents' meeting, but you could just tweak it, all right? A lot of it is the same, and I'll just go through it. I give them a welcome, and I have the different things we're going to go over, arriving to practice on time. One of the things I mentioned, very important, and I'm a true believer in shorter practices rather than longer practices. I put my practices usually run from 1 to 1.5 hours. If your child is 10 to 15 minutes late, he can miss as much as 25% of that day's practice. Very, very important, okay? And I'll give you a hint too. I have it in the last sentence. As the players arrive to practice, this is going to help you later on when you're done with T-ball. But traditionally, I give all kids a number as they arrive at practice. So the first one to arrive is number 1, second one, number 2, and so on. And the reason for this is when I have batting practice at the end of practice, that's the order they will bat. And that's a great motivating factor for getting kids to get to your practices on time. And it's a good idea to start it out in T-ball. All right. Again, we want to build a foundation in T-ball for you, and actually we want to hope that it spreads to the rest of your league. Because what you want is you want to have good organization. You want to have good parity. Good parity brings great competition. Remember that. Okay. I put that we have on practice pickups, get back to practice 5 to 10 minutes before it ends. I talk about opportunity time. We're willing to come extra for kids that want to have help, and that works out very well. All right. Playing time you don't have to worry about in T-ball. If you're a first-time coach, you'll get to know what playing time is all about soon. Fan behavior, I tell them, look. And again, some games will be very competitive during the season. This isn't T-ball, but you could put something like that. Adjust, tweak it a little for T-ball. Clothing, I think it's very important. I'm up in the Northeast. At our field, the sun sets in April. It goes down behind the mountain like 7:15. If it's about 65 degrees when the sun goes down, it could go down to about 45 degrees. It could be anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees cooler. Tell your parents in the first month to throw an extra sweatshirt, okay? Water bottle, you want to have them have a water bottle with the name on it. Equipment, again, T-ball is different, all right? Number 10, I talk about medical conditions. And 11, if you're going to be away. 12 has nothing to do with T-ball. 13, again, I'm emphasizing volunteers because that's what this league is based on. That's what a lot of youth sports is based on, volunteers. And 14 is very important, not so much in T-ball as when they get older. I just want parents not to feel so nervous. It's very, very natural. But I want to address it to let them know that the coaching staff is aware of it. And 15, very important. I came up with the idea around my 7th or 8th year coaching to publish a team newsletter. And the first year I did it myself, but after that I delegated it. It's a 1-page letter. And the way I did it is I ran it 3 times a year. 1/3 through the season. The second was 2/3 through the season, and the third one was at the end of the season. I made sure I put in everyone's name in every newsletter. Even if a player never was able to hit the ball, Johnny hustled from second to third, or Johnny hustled to get the baseball in the outfield. Mention every player's name, okay? The second thing I would tell you to do is, and again, we're going to delegate this to a parent. I've never had a problem getting a volunteer. Instead of making it an email newsletter, make it a hard copy and make, like, if you have 12 sets of parents on the team, make 20 copies or 24. Do the parents a favor. You're going to have, again, it's going to be one page. The reason we do this is a lot of the grandparents in Florida or let's say Arizona or North Carolina that are retired, they live in retirement communities. They love to bring these things down to the pool or clubhouse and show the other grandparents their grandchild's name. I'm telling you, I've seen it done. Please make it a hard copy. Another hint is to what for the second year I did it, I had a parent come up to me and said, Marty, could I put my business card on your newsletter and I'll pay you for it? And I stood there with my mouth open, but I said, sure. So he said, how much do you want? I said, well, $10 and, we'll put it towards the team picnic or whatever. So I'm telling you, by the second newsletter, I had 8 business cards there, $80. We were able to buy some extra baseballs and we had enough money for the team picnic at the end. So that's another idea if you're going to do a team newsletter. All right, and I put our goal is to improve as individuals, improve as a team, and have fun, and so on and so forth. And some more advice for you parents or you coaches that are going to continue coaching 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, when you're coaching All-Stars, as important as it is to have a regular parents meeting, when you coach All-Stars, you have to have a parents meeting. There's no question about it. You have to have a parents meeting if you're the All-Star coach. One of the reasons is you're going to have like 12 players on the team that all 12 are either pitchers or shortstops, and a lot of those players are going to be playing other positions, especially in the outfield, and you have to explain to those parents. But make sure you have a parents meeting. All right, quickly I'm going to go through some philosophy of coaching. Excuse me if my eyes wander a little. I'm going to try to wrap this up. I like to coach, and I mentioned coach to the age of your kids. And I learned in coaching, don't confuse activity with accomplishment. And by that I mean is you could have a 3-hour practice and you could accomplish not a heck of a lot, and you could think you're doing things. I've seen coaches have practices for an hour and a half on the high school field accomplish more than coaches that have 3-hour practices. I research practices. I told you I'm a drill guy. When I first started coaching, I wasn't the best coach, and it took me a couple of years. My practices above T-ball don't run more than 60 to 90 minutes. If you're coaching T-ball, I recommend your practices not run beyond 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour, depending upon the group you have. I like to approach T-ball practices or the team 60% to do with baseball, 40% to do with phys ed, or you're a phys ed teacher. And you say, what is he talking about? Okay, I want you to incorporate, besides baseball skills, some games, all right? Whether it's red light, green light, 1, 2, 3, or a relay race. When you incorporate these games, you want to have a baseball theme if you could, all right? I want to just read from this about I mentioned keep practices shorter rather than longer. According to child developmental experts, the average duration of a child's attention span varies from 2 to 5 minutes for each year of their age. So, for example, a 5-year-old child should be able to focus for 10 to 25 minutes, depending upon the nature of the task and other variables such as the time of day. And I put in, if you could read it right off, this is me, but the attention span of children will be affected by the stimulation of the activity. And I'm 100% behind that. Depending upon the activity you're doing, will either stimulate or not stimulate those kids. There are 2 types of fear that keep phys ed, students in phys ed from learning and performing up to ability: the fear of being embarrassed in front of their peers and the fear of getting hurt. Eliminate both and they will blossom, all right? You could substitute T-ball instead of phys ed. One of your biggest challenges as a T-ball coach is that there's going to be a disparity, the age group of kids around the country. It varies, but it could be anywhere from 4 to 7. And what happens is within that age difference of 4 to 7, kids develop differently. So you may have a 5-year-old developing slower than a 7-year-old. Conversely, you may have a 6-year-old that is not developed as much as a 5-year-old because of numerous factors. I'll tell you a factor that affects this. If a young child has a brother or sister older that's athletes, they will be more progressed in certain skills. It's just common sense. But you have to approach the parents or let them know to be patient with their kids, because it affects them when they see that their son or daughter can't hit the ball as good as their next door neighbor. And what we have to do is try to keep these kids in baseball and softball. Because if I tell you that kids develop differently from 4 to 7, I always wondered how many kids left baseball and softball because they were discouraged or the parents weren't patient enough. Did we lose any really good ball players? And it's unfortunate, but that's part of our goal. Is we want to keep players playing baseball and softball. We're losing too many players to other sports, soccer, lacrosse, and even video games. All right, just wrapping up, if you look, I have a sample practices. I have 30 to 45 minutes. I think you see it there. And from 50 to 60 minutes, which I would more or less discourage. If you see the sample practices, just the time, you'll see that I integrate a fun game between a baseball skill, all right? And at the end of practice, I always end up on a high note. So I'm just going to wrap this up now. That's about it as far as we go for the introduction. And I'll be back in a minute, and we're going to get into, I think it's throwing techniques and how to coach and teach throwing. So for Marty Schupak, thank you if you sat through the whole introduction.